Okay, I wanted to talk about this little article that I found. There was some discussion about whether a place is safer if it allows guns or not. And we know here in America, at least, towns that allow guns are safer than towns that don't. In fact, towns that require guns are much safer. But we know places like Chicago and New York City, and remember before Washington D.C. had their gun ban removed by the Supreme Court, it was considered the murder capital of the world. More people died in Washington D.C. than anywhere, and they didn't allow guns. So it wasn't working in America. Now, this one video I was listening to, the guy was saying that he lived in two different places in Europe and here, and he sees the difference. I don't see how you could see much difference. I mean, unless you're out in the streets where you're seeing a bunch of crime, and that would have to be in the cities, like I was saying, mostly in cities that allow or that do not allow guns. And if you go to a place that there's a lot of guns, you won't see much crime. In fact, I would argue you won't see any crime. Go to a gun show. Go to a gun range. Imagine somebody trying to rob a gun range. It's pretty interesting. But this article just tells us that the FBI shows us that during the period from 2006 to 2010, the period that they have the data, it shows that as gun sales were going up dramatically, gun crimes were dropping dramatically. And what's that tell you? It tells you that when the criminals know that more people have guns, they are more concerned and they stay away from the average person. So even if you don't have a gun in your house, you benefit because the criminals don't know that you don't have a gun. And all they know is they're seeing in the paper that people are buying up guns, that there's a 30% increase in gun purchases. It gives them pause before they're going to go into a house. And that's good for all of us. We don't want them in our house. And the FBI shows that overall murder has actually decreased. That means, all kinds, knife murders, everything. Why? Because the guys that were thinking about murdering now are concerned that somebody might be armed. So overall murder has decreased. It used to be in 2006 we had like 15,000, over 15,000. Now it's under 13,000. So, more guns save lives, and that's fact right here is proven. It says, and firearm murders, which made up 67% of all murders in the U.S., have decreased by 14%. So the amount of now the number of murders committed with guns has dropped. If you were here in Florida during the time that they were passing Stand Your Ground, you would have thought that all hell was going to break loose. The liberals and the Democrats said that there's going to be a shootout in every bar every night. Every town, every city is going to have shootouts every night. Every time there's an argument on the road, people are going to shoot each other. It's just going to be a nightmare. There's going to be death and mayhem everywhere. You're going to have to step over the dead bodies, and there's going to be blood in the streets. And just the opposite is true. But do you think that they're going to come and say, you know what, we were wrong? Let's change our attitude. Let's agree that more guns are good and get more guns in the hands of good people that can help protect. You think they would want to do that? Maybe. So the article says that the number of murders were dropping, gun sales were surging. In 2009, the FBI background checks for guns increased by 30% over the previous year. That's huge. 30% is a big increase. While firearm sales in large retail outlets increased by almost 40%. Wow. That is gigantic. And the applications for concealed permits jumped across the country as well. So that means more people are carrying guns. A lot more people are carrying guns. more people are carrying guns, less people are getting killed, less crime overall. What's the problem here? And according to the FBI data, California had the most gun murders last year, which is 69% of all murders in 2010. But even so, California benefited by the fact that more people are buying guns, because even their murders went down by 8%. And of course, the District of Columbia is the worst place to be. I mean, if you want to live, that is. Yet D.C. has the tightest gun laws in the country. Fortunately for D.C., the Supreme Court struck down their complete ban on handguns, and fortunately for them, they saw a decrease in murders of 12% over the previous year. So D.C. definitely benefited. Of course, the Brady campaign will argue with anything. Anytime you show these kind of things, they're going to hate it. They will always say that, oh, well, that's because the criminal can get to the guns across the border. They can go down to Virginia and get guns. Well, of course they can. And if Virginia banned the guns and the rest of the country banned the guns, then they'd get them from Mexico or from Nicaragua. I mean, are you trying to suggest, Brady campaign, that you can stop guns altogether? You please. So anyway, that was the main point. And as far as, the comparison with other countries, like I said, you would have to compare with a country that is exactly like the United States. What kind of country has the kind of TV? Yeah, I mean, when I say compared to our country, remember, American kids have full access to the internet, full access to cable TV. Most of them 500, 700, 1,200 channels of unlimited, you name it. Any kind of violence, anything you can imagine. It's completely available to kids from any age. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Even wise parents that know how to control their TVs sometimes have a hard time blocking all the channels and making sure that their kids don't have access to a lot of this violent stuff. The games, all violent. And I don't blame the games or anything. I blame the person that's the violent person, because a lot of people can play those games and watch those movies and not have a problem. So you're not going to take it away just because some people can't handle it. We already did that. We had problems with alcohol. You ban it, and what happens? You make a black market. It doesn't help. So we've learned our lesson. And one thing that you'll know about Americans is, when it comes to the Second Amendment, that amendment was created very carefully. It was not the government giving the people the right. It was the government verifying that the people had this right from the beginning, and that this right can never be taken away. So anytime people think that we can just amend that part of the Constitution, they would be wrong, because that is our God-given right. That's not a right that people can take away from a human. Each human has these rights, and they cannot be denied. You can't take away somebody's right to free speech just because the people come together and pass an amendment to the Constitution and say we want to get rid of that one. That's because the founders made it clear that particular amendment wasn't giving anybody a right. They made that real clear. If you go back and look at the Federalist Papers, you'll see that there was a big argument about even creating the Bill of Rights, because they didn't want people to think that they were being given rights by the government, because that's not the case. The Bill of Rights had nothing to do with, it was just a way of setting letting the government know, look, don't step on this. There's a whole bunch of things that we lay out because the Constitution says unless it is specifically provided, the government is not allowed to touch this area or that area, all areas. But for some reason, they decided to clarify the right to bear arms and say, don't even go there. Don't even think about it. And then they made it real clear to say this is a God-given right, not something that we can give and take. Okay? So we're not going to give it up. It's just not going to happen. So the rest of the world can sit there and complain about it, but the American people are sovereign. Each individual is a sovereign. We don't have to cow down to the rest of the world, to the UN. And if Europe wants to do that, fine. That's up to them. And all the other nations, they like that, good. But that's why America's different. That's why we're free. And yes, we're losing our freedom every day, but at some point the people are going to stop that. And that's written right into our Constitution, that at some point when the government becomes too big and too uncomfortable for the people, that the people have the right to toss it off and start over, do whatever they want, because we're the people. We're not bound by what's going on right now. If we decide we don't like it, we can start over. That's written right into our right into our documents, right into our founding documents. The founders made that clear. So, good talking to you guys.